So we have just launched a sponsorship program for the chapter so that we can do a little bit more for our membership and offer some more services to you. And we have a few people that generously sponsored us. Cinecraft Productions is our advocate sponsor, really nice sponsorship package. And welcome to both Kim and Jen, who are from Cinecraft. If you're unaware with our sponsorship program, at this level of sponsorship, it includes 2 chapter memberships as well. So if you're interested, let me know. Supporter sponsor, that would be my business, Cambium. And then in-kind sponsor, Jess from Western Reserve Hospital has been wonderful to give us meeting space for various things. So thank you to our sponsors, and this list will be growing as we continue to work our sponsorship program. And if you weren't aware, there's also the option to do a power member, where you can be a member of both CVATD as well as national and get a lot of additional benefits, discounts on the programs, and access to a lot more services. So welcome to all the power members that are here today. And if any of you are interested in adding that on, I encourage you to call National to add on the power membership, because what they'll do on the phone for you is they'll sync up both your memberships, so you have one expiration date to renew them together instead of having to pay dues twice a year for 2 different organizations. And if you're not aware, we have a couple LinkedIn visibility. The first one is our company page, and that's where we post and share information with you. So encourage you to follow that so you get notifications, especially if you're not good about checking email and our emails go to your spam folder. This is another great way to keep in touch with what we're doing as a chapter. And then we also have a group, and that's where you can post and share information and ask questions and connect with anybody that's a member. It's a great way to connect between meetings, especially if you're working on something and you want some additional insight, or if you're looking for some resources. And I can't do this without letting everybody know that this is an all volunteer chapter. We do not have any paid employees. So everything we do here is through the blood, sweat, tears, and love of the volunteers that help with the program. And we are going to start recruiting pretty soon for people to serve on our 2024 board, because we have several people that are finishing their terms. So we need to backfill them, as well as just committee volunteers. If board volunteerism is just too much of a time commitment, we can certainly use help on committees to just, many hands make light work. So if you're curious about that, feel free to reach out to me. We can have a conversation. And just by having a conversation doesn't require a commitment on your part. I like to make sure that you truly understand what it is that you would be signing up for. It really aligns with what you're hoping to get out of it, and that we have a good match before we put you into any type of position. So lots going on there. And with this group, I don't really need to ask you to turn on your video. You guys are great about having video on. A friendly reminder to stay on mute once the program starts, unless Stacey is asking you to come off mute and engage, just so we don't have any of that background noise. And if you need any type of closed caption access, feel free to turn that on. And with that, I'm going to stop sharing and hand it over to Stephanie to introduce Stacey for us.
Thanks so much. And thanks to all of you. There was a little bit of a glitch with getting the promotion out for this event. And we're very, very pleased that we ended up with a nice sized group this morning for Stacey, because Stacey has some amazing qualifications and some exciting information for us today. She has an engineering degree from Michigan State. And then she has, listen to this, advanced degree. She's got an MS in manufacturing and engineering management from Michigan State. She has an MBA from Ohio State in operations, logistics, and Six Sigma, and she has a certificate in adult learning. So I think she has a great amount of background and lots of good information to share. Her company is Build, Develop, Lead. She presents at conferences. She facilitates roundtables. She's a member of Big Sisters, and she's a volunteer for the Valley Writing's Therapeutic Writing Program. She's here today to talk about women in manufacturing and some programming that she has developed from the ground up. So we're very excited. And Stacey, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome.
Thank you so much for the kind words. I'm glad we've got a good group today. I'm excited to be here, and it's good to see some familiar faces and to meet some new folks as well. I want to keep it pretty casual and make it where it's a conversation. So what I'd like to do is give you guys just a little bit more background about the organization and the program that I built. And then I want to answer whatever questions you have, since it's a fun project and it's really been taking off. So I just have a question for you guys. How many of you have worked with or supported trade associations? Has anyone done that before? Okay, I see one hand.
Yeah, I literally just
And Kate, okay, well, and this is an example, right? This is an association. So what makes us, what the common thread is, we all have an interest in common, or we're in the same field, but there's a lot of differences among us, right? We're at different companies, we're maybe at different levels within the organization. We have different company cultures that we're trying to work within. So Women in Manufacturing is a international trade association. And the common thread is that it's open to folks, women and men, that are in the manufacturing space or adjacent. So they're at companies that support manufacturing. So as you can imagine, designing a training program for an association like that is a little bit different than designing it for just one company, because there's not just one company culture. There's not one set of terminology. There's not one set of processes or machines, right? So it's really different when we think about how do we design a program to meet specific segments of the audience. So doing a needs analysis, I'm sure, is something a lot of you have done or continue to do really often. A needs analysis can get challenging for a group like that, right? So one of the first steps that we took was to look at what are the different sort of layers or big audience segments within women in manufacturing. And as you can imagine, as you get to the higher level leadership positions, it becomes a little bit simpler, I guess I would say, to identify what are those leadership competencies that people need for success. Can we find experts and build programs that are going to be sort of applicable no matter what specific manufacturing company you're in? Great. So WIM already had that. I helped them with those programs earlier. And then they said, Stacey, we've got all these women that are on the production floor, or they're directly supporting production work. They're in quality, they're maybe doing some inspection, they're helping with shipping and logistics. They're working different shifts, they're getting overtime, they're working crazy schedules, they're in different time zones, and they're at all these different companies. How can we help give them the foundational leadership skills so they can break through to that next level? How can we get them equipped to become a team lead and then maybe a supervisor and then move up? That's a big challenge, right? Like, what do you guys think some of the things that I had to do were to design a program to meet those different criteria? Like, what are some of the ways that I could overcome those barriers that I just gave you guys?
Things that are more on demand rather than set for scheduled times.
Yeah, love it. Exactly. So the pandemic was obviously devastating in a lot of ways for a lot of people. But I will say I'm a cup half full, cup overflowing kind of person, very positive person. So one of the silver linings I saw in manufacturing, which is traditionally a kind of more old school patriarchal butts in seats kind of culture, the pandemic forced manufacturing companies to think a little bit differently and think a little bit more flexibly. So there was willingness and appetite to do that asynchronous, that on-demand piece that there wasn't before. So to me, that's a blessing. So you're right, we did asynchronous. Now, think about this audience again. So these are women that are maybe 18, just straight out of high school or from their GED, all the way up to maybe in their 40s, but they haven't progressed beyond that sort of entry level production role. What do you think some of the barriers are for them moving up? Like, what are skills that you think they may be struggling with?
A lot of them aren't traditionally in mechanic roles. So that's kind of the next level from the entry level, is more of that mechanical skills that they
they're like on that technical path. So how do they prove that they can interact with people and maybe do some leadership, right? What are some skills that you think may be holding them back? Like, what are the gaps that they might have?
I think maybe just even trying to stand up for yourself, advocate for yourself, because if it's a lot of, primarily men's environment, that can be hard, especially if you're, 18 to 22.
Right. You haven't had, and this was kind of one of the key learnings. All of us here, I guarantee you've had some sort of professional training. right? Whether it was in college, you had some classes where you had to present and you were challenged in your thinking, or maybe you had to take a crucial conversations class at your job, or maybe you've had a career development plan and some coaching conversations. This audience, traditionally, if anything, they've gotten the annual performance review. Yep, you met your metrics. Here's your standard 3% raise. Or no, you didn't meet your metrics and we're just going to keep you flat. They haven't gotten those skills. So you're right. When something goes wrong, a lot of them don't know how to advocate for themselves or how to clearly articulate what was the situation, what was the decision, what are sort of the outcomes, and what am I going to do differently next time? So a lot of the gaps, they're not technical gaps at all. Like you're saying, Cindy, like they know what they're doing, right? It's how do I interact with others in a professional way and demonstrate even informal leadership, right? And a big piece of it is some of those things we might consider basic, like emotional intelligence. So that self-awareness piece was big. So as we were, well, we, the royal we, right, a company of one, as I was designing this program, I wanted to make sure that we're not just throwing training content at people, right? That's not going to change behavior. That's not going to give these folks what they need. So I wanted to build a robust sort of cohort program. So we're pulling people from different organizations. They're coming from different time zones and they've got different roles, but there's some commonality. So we looked at what sort of online platform makes sense. So not something that just is for training delivery, but also we can use to build a sense of community where they can interact with me as the instructor, they can interact with each other. So we found Mighty Networks. Has anybody heard of Mighty Networks before? No. So it's really cool. So even like, let's say some of you, I think, are consultants. I know Amy and a couple others are. You can get an account on Mighty Networks and you could host your own content, for instance, if that's something you're interested in. But what WIM did, they got a big WIM account for Mighty Networks, and then we build courses within. So these courses are private to people that are invited to this particular program. So these 60 women, for instance, in the initial cohort, came together on Mighty Networks. It's almost, it reminds me of the good parts of Facebook in terms of the community aspect where you can share pictures and put some comments and you can post little videos. And then the good parts of LinkedIn. So you've got some social networking on the professional side, and then the training piece from a basic LMS. So you can put in different styles of content, all the way from documents to recordings to links to actual Zoom meetings or Teams or whatever that haven't happened yet. You can do kind of main sections and then sub lessons underneath it. You can hide things until there's a certain amount of time that's passed or until they've completed things previous. So it's got some good functionality. So I'll show you guys that in a minute. So we picked the platform and then we said, okay, what are the specific competencies we need? So we identified the competencies based on kind of the questions I was asking you guys. So what are those things that are holding these women back? So let me share my screen here. Let me make this bigger. Okay, so do you guys see something? It's green at the top and says empowering women in production. Okay, perfect. So the way that it's structured, it's got a table of contents, and then there's a feed, which is all the like comments and conversations. And then you can see the list of members and you have different ways you can sort them. And then we've got the group chat as well. So if I go back to the table of contents, we said, okay, this is an asynchronous program for the most part, but we want to build a sense of community. So do you see what I've got here? A program kickoff, join us live via Zoom. So we reached out to the organizations that were sending groups of participants and we said, what day and what time is best for a group kickoff? And then we invited the president of WIM, right, to give a talk about why this is so important. I gave some of the logistical information. We invited the coaches of the program. We invited people that are attending and their supervisors, right? And then we recorded it. So if, you know, it didn't work for them because no time meets for everyone, unfortunately, they're able to watch it. And then we had the president and founder of WIM do a separate welcome video that folks can watch as well. So we've got 60 people-ish coming in from different places. I bet you can realize they're coming in with different strengths and areas of opportunity, right? And I wanted to figure out how can we, in a somewhat systematic way, help them understand where they're at. And then how can we help move the needle for them beyond just giving them content? So there's 3 pieces to the puzzle. So one is a pre-assessment, one is matching them with the coach, third is matching them with an accountability partner. So the pre-assessment, I don't know if you guys know Molly Katz. She used to be at Pradco, and she can access their assessment still. So there's an individual contributor assessment that we thought was a good fit for this audience. Takes maybe 15 minutes for them to answer some questions. And then based on how they answer, it gives some questions for reflection. And we also matched them with some external coaches. So I'm blessed to have met some amazing women coaches over my career that have worked in the manufacturing space that I trust. So I identified 6 women and asked them if they'd be willing to coach these individuals. So the coaching format was initial conversation, and these are all one-on-one conversations between a coach and a participant. So each coach had between 10 and 12 people they were matched with. So a quick 30-minute conversation, get to know each other, talk about the pre-assessment, and then the duration of the program was about 4 months. So then 1 month in, a quick check-in. What have you seen? What are the conversations you've been having with your accountability partner? What ahas have you had? How are you going to apply this at work? Do you need to bounce any ideas off me? Your typical coaching conversation. One more check-in a month later, and then a final coaching conversation at the end. Now, what I will tell you is, well, first let me ask a question. Have any of you had access to like a leadership coach or an executive coach for yourself? It's kind of, yes, yeah. So do you think that level of conversation is maybe different than the level that these coaches are having with these individuals?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was surprising. Like that was one of the learnings from this pilot. I should have realized it, but it was a learning for all of us. The folks in this program had never had any coaching, just like they'd never had any professional development. So our coaches, like I said, I'm so thankful the women that I picked were accommodating. They explained it to me. They said, Stacey, it's like being a grandma, a mentor, a big sister, and a coach, right? And that's a different mindset. It's a little bit more guiding and leading than a traditional coaching conversation would be, right? You're doing more than facilitating, and you've got to do a little bit more directing just because this is a brand new type of process. And the self-awareness level across the board was pretty low for these participants. So that first conversation was often really hard. I don't know why I'm so low in accountability. I'm the only one here that's doing anything, right? I'm getting my job done. So breaking through that initial sort of angst about this assessment. This is a tool. It's one piece of the puzzle. It's not a judgment on good or bad. Our goal is to help you feel that you can move forward on the career path that you want. So a big piece of that is understanding how you're coming across to others, right? And then figuring out how we can help you. So based on what we see in your assessment, based on the content that you're going to see in the program, what couple things do you really want to focus on? And how can I help you? Right? So it's just a different sort of conversation. And the other piece was matching them with accountability partners, because, I'll fully admit, even for me as like a working professional, if you just give me access to on-demand content, that goes to the bottom of the priority list when things happen, right? I don't think I'm the only one. So imagine, you're working 50 hours a week, inspecting this part, and your boss is your boss. He's not really checking in that much on you in this extra program that you signed up for, or they signed you up for, which is my favorite thing. So how can we make it where there's a little bit more stickiness, where it's a routine? So we set up the program and said every 2 weeks we have a cadence. A piece of content opens up, you watch the content on your own, you meet with your accountability partner for 15 to 30 minutes, either a phone call, you can do a FaceTime, a Skype, a Zoom, we don't care the format. And here's a quick discussion guide. Just what are your 1 to 3 takeaways? What was an aha? What are you going to try at work? How can I help you? And for the accountability partners, like I said, I have 60 some people across different time zones. So how do you think we did the matchmaking? What did we have to do?
Same time zone, probably.
Yeah, we made a survey, right? We went old school. We're like, okay, here's a Survey Monkey survey. We made a bunch of blocks of times and said, what are the 3 times that you think you'd always be available for a phone call? And then we made a big spreadsheet and color coded it and said, here's your partner. And then we connected them. We said, here's their phone number, here's their email, here's what they look like, here's where they are on Mighty Networks, and let us know if you have any problems, right? So we did as much as we could, and then we were there if they were having issues. So there were some instances where we find out that, you know, somebody's, it's English as a second language and they're more comfortable conversationally in Spanish. Great, we have a couple other people that are in the same boat, let's switch it up. So those are just some lessons learned. Getting more information up front about the individuals can be helpful. So for the future cohorts, we asked, like, what's your, you know, preferred language for an accountability partner? Like, what are some other, you know, kind of criteria that'll help us match you up better? And then we were looking to see if we have any coaches that have, you know, other languages available, right? So that's sort of the 3 pieces of the puzzle. And then the content, we started with emotional intelligence. And the way that we did each of these is I reached out to experts that I've met, either at manufacturing companies or women that are specialists in a particular competency area that are comfortable in the manufacturing space and are relatable with the audience. And I said, can you work with me to build a 20 to 40 minute recorded segment where we're really hitting the highlights? And can we build some simple handouts? Can we weave in some activities where they're taking a pause, writing some information down? So we tried to make it as interactive as you can with asynchronous content. So we came up with emotional intelligence, customer service, and safety orientation. So we were hearing a lot that it's not just external customers, it's reframing it that everyone you work with is an internal customer of yours. And if you want to be seen as an informal leader with potential to move up, you've got to be treating everyone with that customer mindset, right? And that's kind of an aha for some folks, because in production, sometimes you're so focused on getting your task done that the how you're coming across isn't always ideal. Right. And I've worked in manufacturing, like you said, I'm an engineer. I've worked at so many flavors of manufacturing, so I know this is how it works. We also talked about individual responsibility and time management. So a big part of moving up from an individual contributor to a team lead is, instead of somebody directing all your work to you, now you need to think about how to manage your own time and help others manage their time. So that's a new skill set for folks. Team mentality and coping skills. So this woman is amazing. She is, she's a migrant, came from Mexico. She worked her way up to a supervisor at a food production facility. And I asked her, I said, you'd be perfect for this one because you've overcome so many obstacles, and manufacturing can be challenging for a woman, right? Especially a woman from a different background. You're dealing with folks that have a lot of preconceived notions about you and what you're capable of. And with manufacturing and a lot of other environments, you need to be able to handle difficulties in a way that doesn't get you the scarlet letter forever, right? So that's why we called it coping skills. So it's a lot of, it weaves in with emotional intelligence, like how am I feeling? How am I presenting to others? How can I maybe take that breath and control my reaction? And is there a way that I can articulate it, right, in a calm way so we can come to a different solution next time? And then we did problem solving and negotiation. So there's a lot of maybe informal negotiation that happens. You know, the sales engineer, I promised that we'd have, 600 of these widgets out today. What are you doing? I also have these 3 people that need everything today. So, how can you have those conversations or work with your supervisor in a respectful way to get to the best solution for everybody, right? And then networking and building relationships. So all of us probably know that that saying of it's not what you know, it's who you know. There is truth to that. As much as it can hurt to admit that it's not always just about how good you are at your job, it's also who you know. This one is building your internal network, but also leveraging groups like this, for instance. So for these women, it's what are other manufacturing organizations in your community? Are you involved with your local women in manufacturing chapter? If you are, like what other criteria do you have and what interests do you have? And are you involved in the community? Do you have kids? Are you involved with the PTA? Are you taking part in community events sponsored by the Chamber of Commerce? Like, are you getting to know others in your community to help build up that knowledge level of you as a person, right? Beyond your direct team. Because you want your name to be coming up in meetings like, oh, Tim's going to retire from his supervisor position in 3 years. Who do we have that might be a good fit at that point? You want your name to be in the conversation. And part of that is learning how to network and build relationships, not just for right now, but for the future. And then we had one on leadership fundamentals. So around influence and presenting yourself and sharing your story. And then I ended it with this segment that I love. It's the power and place of women in manufacturing. And you could translate this idea to whatever project you're working on. This is women that have a great story to tell about their journey in this field. So it's women from different backgrounds, different national origins. They've got different roles that they're in now. So they each just took their iPhone or their Zoom and did a 3 to 10 minute recording for me. So we end with this uplifting, where you have a place here, you are powerful, you belong. Here are all these examples of women that have made it, and we're excited for you to be the next one. Right? And I'm happy to report that several of these women from the first cohort and second and third and fourth and fifth and sixth have been promoted. And I see a lot of their names in the management development program that WIM puts on. So the program works, right? And that's what it's all about, right? Like my tagline is, I care about connecting people with the skills and opportunities they need for success, not only now, but for their future roles. So I'm happy you guys wanted to see this. I'm personally really proud of the impact that we've made on women in these roles, right? We're empowering and uplifting a really underserved population in this manufacturing space. So that's the overview. I'm going to stop sharing. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
I have one for you, Stacey. I know, particularly when you're working with people that are not in a leadership role in the manufacturing space, it's all about production and work on the floor. So how did you overcome the whole thing of, oh my gosh, they're going to have to be off the floor for a period of time to grow and develop, and having them work that into their day without feeling guilty or having it go against their leadership potential because they're not producing like they're expected to?
So that's a good question. It's something we adapted to once we got through the pilot. So what we saw in the pilot was a lot of HR managers at these manufacturing companies were enrolling women without really telling them or explaining why they were enrolling them, which is bananas. So we adjusted the the intake application process, right? And we said, why are you registering them? Like, have you talked with them? What are you hoping they'll learn? Who's their supervisor? Are they aware? So it's a lot of that blocking and tackling to make sure there's alignment internally and the expectations are clear. And we made sure to articulate with the key stakeholders at the big companies that participate This is a 4-month program. The commitment is a maximum of 30 minutes a week on average. So we tried to keep it very doable. And the Mighty Networks platform, you can access it on a computer, on a tablet, or on your phone through an app. So we made sure that the companies were handling it internally, however they prefer. So some said you can access it whenever and we'll comp you the time that you spend, or we want you to do it on the job site. So we as WIM didn't prescribe how it needed to be done. And we invited at the kickoff, the coaches, the supervisors, we invited, the HR managers if they wanted to participate, just so they can feel the excitement, get an understanding of the commitment, and hopefully follow the women in their organization through the program. And for companies that enrolled more than a handful of people, we would send monthly reports. So that's another good thing for Mighty Networks. You can see the percent complete. So you'd say, hey, they're tracking right on, or here's a couple that we've reached out to, but we would love, a little encouragement from you as well. So it is a very hands-on type of program. For as much as it is asynchronous, there was a lot of facilitation and moderation to make it successful for this audience. What else? And you can ask me other things too. I mean, like I said, I've done a lot, workforce development is my jam, but manufacturing is my passion. So I'm happy to talk about.
I'll also just make a comment. I was not surprised when you talked about the difference of coaching women at this level versus executive coaching. I recently did like a market research for my business where I just did outreach. I met with one person, they introduced me to another person. I just kept talking to a bunch of people, and I was specifically targeting the high potential individual contributor and the middle manager. And everyone across the board felt like coaching was not something that they had access to, that it's something that only executives can access. So I'm thrilled to hear that you found a way to bring coaching to that population and to help dispel that myth, because coaching is for everyone. I mean, everyone can benefit from coaching. So it's great that you gave them a medium where they could get access to it.
Thank you. And that's something I fought for. Good coaching is not cheap, and I had to pull in some favors the first time in the pilot so we could show with data how much of an impact it makes. And thankfully there was that impact that I knew there would be. So the coaching element has continued.
I have a question. Did you or any of the, I have it written down over here so I wouldn't forget it. Let me pull it a little closer. Did you or any of the mentors, especially in your pilot, thinking about how it started, have actual experience in production on the shop floor from an entry level, not as an engineer or a leader?
Yeah, that's a good question. So if I think about the women that I worked with to develop the content, at least 2 started in production and worked their way up. And I'm going to say at least 4 others had worked in manufacturing, but more at a white collar entry point. Yeah.
That's one of the things I did when I was in college, midnight shift in the factory with the windows wide open and smearing yourself with citronella oil to keep the mosquitoes away. And, it's just a different mindset. And this is really exciting. I'm also thinking of what was it, a year or 2 ago, what Harvard Business Review did, that thing where like the what do you call it? Like the soft skills training, leadership training, stuff like that. It has no proof that it works. And so basically, everybody was kind of, it was like, I don't know if you guys remember that, but they had statistics to prove that it didn't in a lot of industries. But your program is a wonderful example of how, when it's done right and with the right audience, it really can make a difference. This is wonderful.
Thank you so much. It was definitely a labor of love. I'm proud to have supported WIM as their main educational consultant for years. I'm refocusing my business, so I'm not doing as much work with them. But I tell you what, all those lessons learned from this, I am ready, willing, and able to apply them to other projects. I've got some ideas in mind of maybe making my own content to help some of this audience as well. Because you're right. I think there's a benefit to having folks that have walked in those shoes being a part of the program. And I firmly believe that having very realistic scenarios and very realistic examples and case studies is key. So the examples that these educators provided, they're real. You know, the supervisor at Leprino Foods, they're real examples from her job there. You know, the office manager at a local tool and die shop that's talking about safety, she was the safety coordinator, right? Like she knows exactly what she's talking about. And this audience is hard. They do not give trust. You have to earn trust. And that's why I spent so much time picking folks that I thought were resonant and applicable, you know, and why I was so firmly entwined in the facilitation and moderation of the pilot to make sure we had a good program and structure in place so WIM could pick it up and run with it.
And does WIM give people access to the program for the, I'm assuming it's not for the price of membership. I'm assuming they're charging these companies.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an extra price.
Are you at liberty to share that price, or is that something?
Oh yeah, it's on the website. Let me see. Hold on, let me do a share and then you guys can you can experience it with me. I think they're on like cohort number 6 or 7 now. Like it's been going gangbusters. So I was involved with the first couple and then got pregnant and had a baby, and like life has been complicated. So I haven't been as involved. So this is the educational program. So we've got leadership for women, management development, and then empowering women in production. So let's see what they're at right now. Let's see, $9.95 for a WIM member. That's for one person. And then a non-member, it's about double.
Yeah. I mean, that's great because that's achievable. You know, that's leadership development programs. Sometimes they're priced so high that particularly small, mid-sized companies, it's just not something they can really access, but this is achievable for all sizes.
And then if you guys want to read some of these, like these are things I go back and read when I'm wondering, like, am I making an impact on people? Maybe I am. Yeah, my coach challenged me to look at myself and bring solutions instead of complaining.
That's a huge shift.
Right?
Yeah.
Yep, I feel I'm a stronger person when it comes to taking self-reflection. Like you know, to me, I'm like, these are powerful learnings women are having. And I see their names come through, like I said, in the management development program, which is the next step on the ladder. Like this is good stuff. What other questions? I'm happy to talk about anything. Like I said, I love brainstorming with like-minded learning and development folks.
Cynthia, I know you're in a manufacturing environment. What's jumping out for you as you're looking at the program Stacey developed?
It's I like it. We don't do anything specifically for women here. We do have a lot of females entry level. We don't have a lot of females that are like they're entry level or quality. They don't do any of the more advanced tasks. We have a couple of females in our leadership program or leadership here, but just looking at it from a leadership development perspective, because we do a leadership development program. It's not just for women. It happens twice a year. We bring everybody together, and actually because of the wonderful treatment that we've received from Kent State Business Center, they used to go around the country. Now every single one of them is happening here at Kent State at the Business Center. It's really cool. It's a 3-day event, and just looking at this going, how can we do the 3-day event differently?
Mm-hmm.
You know, that kind of thing. So
yeah,
it's interesting.
Well, thank you for the feedback.
Curious, I know you talked about that you included that migrant who worked her way up and the coping skills.
Mhm.
That's anything, since it's women, empowering. And manufacturing can be, I mean, it isn't always, but it can be one of those really like male chauvinistic kind of environments where they look at a woman and are like, look at those arms. There's no way she could lift anything. Like they just automatically make assumptions that women are incapable in a variety of ways. And is there a place where you include that in the like empowerment conversation?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I don't think we say it directly like that, but it's woven into several of them. So I think it starts with the emotional intelligence. Like, okay, somebody says something to me or treats me a certain way. I'm in charge of the reaction, right? Like a lot of times, unfortunately, it means that we've got to be the bigger person and be the adult in the conversation, right? So that's a piece of it. And then when we got to that customer orientation or the customer service and safety orientation, we talk about it a lot there and really think about how can I have a customer mindset here? And can I get curious about the thing that they're saying or doing and figure out what's the root of this issue? Like, is it that they're concerned I'm not capable? Is it that they're, confusing me for how they talk to their neighbor? Like, what is the problem here, right? And dealing with it in a professional way. I'm sure you guys have taken like crucial conversations, right? Where it's stating what the facts are that we can all agree on. And that really helps diffuse the situation. And then let's go forward from there together. And then on the team mentality and coping skills, she flat out acknowledges up front, like manufacturing is hard, right? Like you come in expecting one thing on your shift. A lot of times it's totally different. People call off, you don't have a raw material you need. The machine isn't working. Like it can really be frustrating and it can suck. So how can you rise up and be the role model, right, for your team and be that person that's saying, okay, we're at work, we're going to get it done, we're going to do the best we can, and it's going to go better the more positive we approach this. So a lot of it is like self-control, right? Self-awareness, self-control, and then calling out in a respectful way if there's a comment like that. And then the coaches help with that piece of it too. So I asked all the coaches, like, make sure you're asking them, do you have a situation at work that either is happening that you're afraid to resolve or you don't know how to resolve? Let's practice together. And I can give you feedback and you can fine tune how you want to approach it. And then let's talk about how it went.
So I have a different perspective
Yeah.
a little bit on Kate, and what you described was, as a woman, a guy comes to help me lift a box, for example, and I have always been, look, I can do it. I could do it myself. Like when I was younger and I golfed a lot, I golfed off the men's tees because if I was going to beat you, I was going to beat you legit, right? But where I work, we have a lot of tenure here. We have people in their 70s working here. Somebody this month is celebrating his 53rd anniversary of work.
Gosh. Wow.
I mean, like it's seriously a good place to work.
Yeah.
And when I actually had a conversation yesterday or 2 days ago, whatever, with one of the individuals who runs the line, and he has packers and they have boxes of ends. We make food cans. He had boxes of ends. They're not lids, they're ends. And the boxes are 85 pounds. And the packer's job is to take the box and put it on the pallet. He said, when I have females here, I just do it for them.
Oh.
And he did it. He's not doing it because he doesn't think they're capable. He's
Right.
doing it because he was raised that way. And he is there to help them. So it's an interesting, like, as females, our defenses are automatically up. No, I can do this. I'm totally guilty of that. But looking at it from a different lens, they're also there. They just want to help, right?
Yeah.
So it's interesting to listen to some of the guys out there.
Yeah.
I mean, been here a long time, but they're here to help too.
Yeah. And that's a great point. I think the common thread is if each person in the situation gets curious and assumes good intent, we can have a good outcome, right? Like if that gentleman came to me and said, let me help you with those, I might say, sure, how about we do every other one? Or I might say, no, I got it, or, whatever. But if we have the conversation, I find out it's like, hey, that's just how I was raised. I have a much different reaction than if I assume that he's assuming I can't do it. Because you know what they say about making assumptions. So thank you for sharing that, Cindy. That's a really great point. We've got to think about it from other people's perspectives. And if we can bring those out of them and get some clarity, we can move forward.
And honestly, if I had to pack 85-pound boxes every 4.5 minutes for 12 hours, I would do it because I'm stubborn. But by the end of the day, I'd be like, okay, I'm done. I quit.
For sure. That's a big expectation.
Yeah, I was thinking, another benefit is preventing injuries.
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's a lot of women can lift 85 pounds. I could not. I could do 55, but not 85. And so it kind of gives your staff more flexibility and prevents those injuries too. So, wow.
Yeah, the other thing too is like a lot of these men have the other opposite side of the ego thing where they ask for help. And I've had that experience when I was working, with manufacturing, where you're like, hey, ask for help. Well, I can lift it. Yeah, you can, except for that one time where your vertebrae snaps. So how about you ask for help? Oh, wait, ask Susan over there for help. Well, and then they work together and you're like, oh, okay, look, we didn't die today. So yeah, there's that side of it too, where I'm sure you guys talked about it, the emotional intelligence thing for like women leaders to be like understanding men's fragile egos and how to handle them.
Well, and then the generational side too, like
is,
Cindy
yeah,
was saying, right? Like it's not only the gender, it's generation, it's part of the country, so we had women from down south that are like, oh, well, I could never, and then you have women up north that are like, get out of my way. So there's all these different elements to it. So
that's
thank
the great
you,
thing
Brandon.
about that emotional intelligence course. That stuff is huge. Everybody needs that.
Yeah, it's funny. So I put that one first on purpose, and you wouldn't believe the number of comments and emails I got that was like, this was a huge aha for me. And the coaches said after they watched that, our next conversation was totally different in a good way. And I was like, perfect. That's what I was hoping for. What else, guys? What other questions?
Another thing I've seen, I haven't worked in manufacturing per se, but more distribution. And it seems like one of the leadership challenges we were always working with leaders on was the multicultural environment.
Mm-hmm.
Misunderstandings because of different cultures and unfortunately some very ugly racial things going on that we had to help the leaders work through. Was that too high level for this program, or did you address anything like that in this program?
That was a little too high level for this one. I will say the participant mix, we had a lot of folks from very different backgrounds, and I was one of the coaches. So I met with 10 women on my own, and they were all from different backgrounds in different parts of the country and all that good stuff. So I guess I would say like treat everybody as an individual, right? And then listening to their stories, specific things would happen. So we would use the coaching as a way to say, okay, that's the situation. What would you like to be different? Okay, what are some things that we can help you with to practice to have that conversation? If it doesn't go the way you want, who else can you involve on site to help you? Are you comfortable with your supervisor? Are you comfortable with your HR manager? Sort of play out the scenario. But we didn't do like a high level, anything like DEI or anything like that. We kind of leave that to the companies to handle internally. Good question.
This Mighty Networks thing is really cool.
Yeah, right. I like it. It's got, like I said, it's got enough of the LMS features to be useful for this kind of program. I don't know that I would use it for like internal compliance training, right? But something like this, it's great.
Like, do you use it like, because I'm thinking about starting to consult on the side for training stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Use that for that, where you like just kind of like host all the things you've made onto that Mighty Networks, and you just kind of like parse it out there, or is that only one of the
That's my future plan. So what I would say is, okay, me as Evelop LLC, I'd have my main platform, I'd put my content, and then I'd say, okay, this course, maybe it's a manufacturing 101 course. I would say, here's the price point, here's the access code, here's the duration you get it for. So it's got some good flexibility.
Okay, cool. That's awesome. I'm gonna check it out.
Yeah.
Kind of a related question. You said that Mighty Networks has like measurements and tracking involved in it during the cohort.
Yep.
What kind of measurements and tracking are, and I assume that there's some that's going on because you're saying, that some of these people have advanced. Like,
Yep.
what kind of measurements and tracking are you doing afterwards to see what the results are?
That's a good question. So when I was working with WIM to consult them on this, they were looking at grant funding to help with these educational programs, right? So a lot of entities that give grants ask for data, return on investment data. So we built some surveys. So we did one like right after the program, like kind of that level 1 feedback, et cetera, et cetera. And then the goal was to send one at, I think, a 1 year and a 3 year to see what's different. Has your title changed? Have your responsibilities increased? Like, what has changed with sort of your role? So I haven't seen those particular results, but I will say from the cohorts I was involved in, I think the first 3, I know of at least 2 handfuls of people that got promotions and they referenced the skills they learned in the program. So to me, like, that's some pretty good feedback, right? And then I saw at least 3 names that had moved up into the next management training program, which is also good feedback. But as an association, they don't have one master LMS or database that's tracking individuals over time. It's a little bit tougher than it would be for one company where everybody's got, the same email handle, you've got the org chart and all that differentiating data to really track them. Good question.
Something that occurs to me is that, I'm thinking back in the days before I got into the business field, and I had a long career in healthcare. And I used to say, I worked in the lab. So you had to have a 4-year degree and a year of internship and a national registry and everything like that. But you're essentially working in a blood test factory. How many can you do in an hour? With 100% accuracy, and God forbid the machines break down. And because you're the first line to fix it. And right. And what would happen in those kind of fields, and I worked in a couple of labs, and they were excellent labs, and had wonderful coworkers, but I just knew I could do more and different things, so branched out from there. But what would happen is that a person would get promoted into leadership because they were an excellent tech.
Yes.
And they just did not have I would see somebody walking in the door and thinking, don't hire that person. They're a slacker, and sure enough, that person would get hired and they would be a slacker. And part of that is just an, innate sense of people and being a cynic. But I'm thinking that there are other like technical type professions that would benefit a lot from something like this, and that also have their own. We had ASCP, where our registry type of a thing, and that might be interested in a program very much like that. I don't know. That just occurred to me since there was silence and crickets. I thought I'd throw it out there.
That's a really great point. See, I'm taking a note here. I will say one of the projects I'm working on now is for it's a healthcare medical company, and they do like sterilization of medical devices. And they're global and they have plants everywhere, but they're small plants with just a few people. And they wanted a team lead training program. So I think you're right. So we're translating some of this content, but we're building in specific examples. So what's your terminology? What are some situations that have gone well, whether some that haven't, so I can use those as realistic and relevant examples. So I think, you're right. The bones of this are definitely applicable to that level of role across different technical spaces, but it's weaving in information from subject matter experts to make it realistic, where people are like, oh yeah, I've seen that. I get that.
Yeah, I could see this having a lot of easily transferable, like if you move this from, other than the specific examples related to manufacturing, like it would be valuable for any industry doing it this way, because and the way it worked, and the way that I think it was Kim was talking about how soft skills training often doesn't work, is because it's got that coaching element and the specific examples, so they can like take it back to their job and immediately create that reinforcement. Well, I love that about what you designed here.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. To me, the proof is in the pudding, getting notes from folks saying they got promoted and they're moving up and they're recommending their colleagues to attend. And I'm looking forward to using the lessons I've learned for future projects too. Well, I'm going to pop in the chat. I put in my LinkedIn if you want to connect. I love to get more of a network of folks to share comments and share articles and share all the good stuff with. And I put in my website too, if you guys ever have a need for anything related to workforce development, I am happy to help. I've done everything from like this training program for a national association to building, scenarios and online training for additive manufacturing for the Department of Defense, all the way to helping companies do LMS implementation and optimization. So happy to talk. And thank you guys for the opportunity today.
Thank you, Stacey, so much. What a wonderful program. So interesting to see how you put it together and did a really beautiful blended approach to have that transformational impact, which you obviously had for many women out there. So thank you for the work that you do and for helping people grow and develop and pursue their passions. I think, that's one thing I love about this field is the impact that we in this field can have on other people and helping them to thrive with that. So make sure that you check out Stacey's website, connect with her on LinkedIn. If you can't do it right now, there's an option to save chat. So you can save chat so you can get those links later and work on those. And then let's talk about upcoming programs. I have it on a slide so you can see it. Our next program for the chapter is our Performance Improvement SIG. So Teresa Longo will facilitate that. They're doing a book club right now, and they're working through the book Training Ain't Performance. So even if you haven't read the book, it's very insightful just to pop in and be part of that dialogue as well. And then on August 15th, we're having our chapter meet and greet at the Wine Mill. So join us there, just a casual, relaxed. There's no fee for members to go to that other than what you choose to consume while you're there. So it's a nice way to get out of the office and go in and spend some time with folks. And then we'll be back together in October for a nightmare of a training. That'll be a fun one. In November, that's where we rescheduled. We're going to do a program on Camtasia in the spring, and our facilitator, Jess, was ill, unfortunately, on the day that we scheduled it. So we had to reschedule for November. So come join us for that. And then we will have our holiday party, in-person party at Papa Joe's in November. That one's going to be a lot of fun. I'm getting donations for door prizes. So I'm hoping to get enough that everybody walks out of the room with a swag bag of goodies, and several walk out of the room with a nice gift basket to take with you. So it won't just be fun in terms of meeting people, but you'll get goodies too. So make sure you sign up and join us for that. And again, any questions about the chapter, any desire to get more involved in the chapter, feel free to reach out. Love to have a conversation with you and see how we can work together and also be of more service to our members. So I will stop sharing and just say thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful Friday and a wonderful weekend.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, everyone. So good to see you.
Thanks.
Take care.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody. Great to see you all again.